All right, everybody. The temperature sensor went out on this car, and I'm not a mechanic, but I'm going to replace it because I don't like paying mechanic prices. So we have to disconnect the air intake. We have to disconnect the radiator hose because I'm also going to replace the thermostat. Now, this is the first time we've done it to this car. I do most of the work myself. I'm not a mechanic, so this is for entertainment purposes only. But I like to think that I'm pretty handy. I'm more of a woodworker. I work on homes. But this is the car I drive to make my quotes, and it's part of work. So here I'm taking off the intake. When I was taking it off, the screw on the hose clamp was coming off, but the hose clamp wasn't getting loose. So I had to kind of wiggle it around to make sure that everything was good to go. And I'm taking off these clips on the sides of it. I'm taking off the hose clips on that side. But all this stuff has never been removed. So with the heat, everything is pretty much seized on there. So it takes some finessing to get it off without trying to damage anything. Needless to say, we got it done. When I was taking off the hose clamp, the radiator hose, I was trying to be gentle so I wouldn't spill any antifreeze because nobody likes to work in a mess. Now the box where my air filter goes is like super loose. Maybe when I take it in to get the oil change, they never reattached it, so I tightened it up. But yeah, it was a few screws loose. So this is where I was saying, this is where it got kind of tough. But it's been sitting on there for going on 11 years. So it just took a little elbow grease to get it off. But everything comes off real easy. Now I'm just making sure I'm checking that nothing fell in there. Making sure everything's all good. Before I even started, you make sure you gotta get your battery unplugged. But see right there? That's the temperature sensor. It has a little lock. You just pop it off with a screwdriver. And it takes a 19 millimeter deep socket to come off. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And this is the thermostat. 3 screws, 10 millimeter socket. Just like that. They come out. Don't forget to take the hoses off. They could get kind of in the way. Now the backflow or overfill hose, that one was, it was easy to take off. And again, you'll see me right now when I pull it off. I am real careful in making sure that no fluid gets out. So I blow it back into the reservoir. Got a little bit in my mouth, so I spit it out. Got to be careful with that. Don't do that. And I was trying to take off the one to the thermostat. Again, it was too tight. And I didn't want to damage anything here. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to leave it alone. And once I remove the whole thing, then I'll do it not on the vehicle. Because where everything goes screwed into, the housing, is all aluminum. And you have to be real careful with that because you could strip it, you could break it. And I ain't trying to do that. So when I was trying to be real gentle and not spilling. You guys just saw I spilled all the antifreeze that was in that hose. So, broke it loose. Everything good to go. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in just to make sure everything goes where it's supposed to be. I'm not going to clamp it down yet, but I'm going to put it where it belongs. There's that clip I was telling you about. And you just unplug it. And remember I had said you need a 19 millimeter socket? Well, I didn't have one. So I just use some pliers and very gently I backed it out. I looked, I thought I had some, but maybe I didn't. Maybe it's in my workshop. But like I said, I'm not a mechanic. I have a lot of mechanic tools that sometimes I use when I'm working on houses. But in this case, I didn't have one. So when I go buy the parts, I ended up buying a 19 millimeter socket just for this. Now I wanted to remove the parts first and bring them with me to the auto parts so I could compare them whenever I bought them. Because, you want to get it right. Cover everything up before I left. Just nothing falls in there. And now it's just a matter of putting it back in. The threads on this sensor already have a seal on it, and this sensor has a aluminum washer. The other one had a copper washer. I'm just gonna go with it. Again, we have to tighten these, but nothing, you don't have to gird it on there because it's an aluminum casing. And it's real easy to overdo it, especially when you have big pythons like this guy right here. Now I'm just letting my fingers do all the torquing, just because I've busted a few bolts here and there. Put the safety clip back on there. Plug it in, and that part is done. Now it's time for the thermostat. Real simple. It only goes in one way. It's always a good practice to take a picture of before in case you have any questions on how it goes. Now the last gasket from the last thermostat gets stuck on there, so remember to remove it before you put this one in there. As I'm putting on these screws, I'm rotating them. I'm tightening them as we go all at the same time, just to make sure I get a good seal. Again, this takes a 10 millimeter socket. So here I just used the 19 millimeter to do this whole project, a 10 millimeter, my standard socket, a screwdriver, pliers to take off the hose clamps, and either a Phillips or like a little socket for the other hose clamps. A nut driver, there you go. I use a nut driver, or you can use a Phillips screwdriver to take off the hose clamps. And that's pretty much it. The 10 millimeter takes off the thermostat and undo your battery. The 19 millimeter takes off the sensor. The nut driver takes off your hose clamps, and your pliers take off the other spring-loaded hose clamps. But as you can see, I'm not tightening them down real hard. Once they give me some resistance, I just push a little bit past that and we're good to go. And it's a plug and play. Just put the hoses back in where they go. Here's my shaky camera technique. And there it is. I'll just go ahead and slide those hose clamps back where they belong. And that's that. I'm sure they have better pliers for this than the ones I'm using. And maybe I should have replaced these hose clamps with the adjustable hose clamps that I could adjust with my nut driver, because these were kind of a pain. And it was like 36 degrees outside. Here I am putting other hose clamp on the radiator side. I try not to have too much of this emptiness in the videos, so you guys could just get to the point. Before I put anything in there, I give everything a good wipe down. I want good contact. There was like some carbon buildup. In order to go ahead and remove that. Again, we've had this vehicle since 2015. So everything goes out after a while. But this goes in real easy. It didn't take that much force to get it in there. It just popped in. And it was real easy. I went ahead and wiped it down because it was just dirty. We've taken this vehicle coast to coast a few times. All reliable. Putting on the attachment for the intake. But yeah, don't be intimidated by a lot of this work. It can be intimidating. It did feel like I removed half of the components that were in this engine compartment. But a lot of the stuff is just replacing parts. Not like the old cars where you have a whole engine bay of space. You can sit there and work on your car. These new cars, it's a little bit more, you have to remove a lot more to get to a simple part. But it was Sunday. I needed to get it done. Like I said, this is the truck I used to do my quotes and to show customers that I don't have just a dirty old truck, even though my truck is not dirty, but I like to make an impression. Here's my nut driver, tightening it up. As you can tell, it didn't take much to get this complete. It's just removing this air box, 2 hoses, some hose clamps. That's pretty much it. I think the longest thing that took me, here's the thermostat before I continue, all complete. And I'll try to get an angle of the sensor. And you can see it right there in the middle, a little white yellowish. That's it right there. All plugged in, ready to go. then we check in the bottom, make sure that, there's no leaks. And it looks like there is a leak, but that's from all the coolant I spilled. But before you spill anything, before you even work on the vehicle, before you even put your tarp down or whatever to catch the fluids, wet the ground. You wet the ground, a lot of it will not stick. You'll catch it with your catch, the tools that I used. And that's pretty much it. Thank y'all.